Welcome to program 2 of What People with Disabilities Teach Us. In our first program, we focused on ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, as many people would call it. Today, we're going to have a discussion. Disabilities represent a lot of different topics, and we have representatives in our discussion today, parents in particular, of the big three, as I sometimes call them. Disabilities can include physical disabilities, cognitive disabilities, mental health and sensory kinds of issues, emotional, developmental. Our guests today have a finger in all of those, or most of those. And so in just a moment, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But first, as one of the representatives myself, I'm wearing two hats today. As Mike Delaney, Maggie Delaney's father, I am a parent of a daughter with disabilities, and I want to describe my daughter's journey along with my journey with her, and my ex-wife Sharon's journey in all of that time. Maggie is 38 years old and currently lives in Louisville, Kentucky. She has two sisters, Katie, 36, and Rosie, 32. That's important because we're going to talk about how siblings factor into families of disability. And Maggie has been visually impaired and perceptually impaired since birth. She has only the use of one hand and arm as the result of a stroke that took place when she was born. We didn't know all of these things at the time. They only gradually revealed themselves in the early years. But despite those things, Maggie has gone on to obtain her master's in social work degree. She graduated from Kent School of Social Work there at U of L in 2007 with a 3.9 grade point average. And she has developed a full life in nearly every way except her greatest challenge so far in her 38 years is securing and sustaining employment. And as a lot of folks with disabilities can tell you, the unemployment rate runs nearly 80%, certainly for the visually impaired, but among other types of disabilities as well. She keeps on plugging and we keep on supporting her. Earlier in her life, she obtained her bachelor's degree from Northern Kentucky University. She attended Holmes High School, where if you can imagine a young lady who is visually impaired, legally blind, participating in the marching band. She did so for a year. I'll have to tell you, band parents are competitive. And the parents eventually came to the band director and pressured him into asking Maggie to not participate in the band because they are a very competitive bunch. And she was remarkable in Dad's eyes, hardly ever missing a step, but maybe 2 or 3 times in a 15-minute routine, she might be a half step off. Nonetheless, I thought it was one of the more phenomenal events I've ever witnessed out of anyone. She worked part-time at a fast food restaurant and at the Kentucky State Employment Office as a teenager. And like so many couples of children with disabilities, Maggie's mother and I divorced more than 20 years ago. But I want you to know that my participation in this panel and in this discussion has their support. They know every word of what I've already shared with you, read it this morning. And so she's currently active in her church where she sings in the choir. She sometimes dog sits. And Maggie is a person living a very active life, including exercising by walking and swimming. And it's been a real joy in so many ways to be her father. We also have parents. I've described for you a daughter with physical disabilities, we have parents present today with other kinds of disabilities. And I'm going to introduce you to Dennis and Kelly Flynn on my right, and let them introduce themselves with that little bit of introduction.
You want to go first?
You can.
All right, hello. My name is Dennis Flynn, and I am the father of a 20-year-old male with a cognitive disability, that being of Down syndrome. And
He was our first child, and so that was quite a surprise when we found out he had Down syndrome. But we were, for some odd reason, I would say, go-getters into getting to know everything we could about that disability with the help of the Down Syndrome Association. So we kind of delve into their association, into their early action plan and programs, followed the early intervention program with him. So from that point, I think we had decided that we were going to involve him in everything that we could that would, I would say, have to advance his cognitive, physical, and his sensory issues also. Luckily, he was born very healthy, no heart problems. So he started early intervention at the age of 3 months in our home, and then attended preschool starting in the Fort Thomas area, and then I'm from the Princeton area as a teacher myself, so we moved
Princeton
him
in Cincinnati.
in Cincinnati, and so we moved him to a preschool there. Since I was working, he could go there. It was easier as far as babysitting, and involved in a preschool that was half kids with disabilities and then typical kids. So we had that modeling right from the beginning, which was a strength, and especially in his language. So he was in physical therapy, OT, and speech starting at the age of 3 months until probably high school, I guess.
yeah, I think initially, we're veterans, I guess. So when you look at the journey that we've been on, I still remember the initial shock that we shared when we heard that he might have a disability of Down syndrome, and it was our first child, so we were really kind of overwhelmed. So it was something that when we looked for supports through the Down Syndrome Association, they got us up, they empowered us, and we became advocates, and we've been on that journey ever since.
And from, typically he was in beginning soccer, t-ball. We involved him into community programs. Like we actually, 10 months later, his brother Drew was born, which was a oops and a shock. But later ended up being quite the advocate for him. And because of that brother right behind him, I think that was a big pull. And they've been very close. This is the first year they've actually been separated because Drew now has gone off to college. So from the, I guess from the start, when he started elementary school, we decided that we wanted him mostly in an inclusive setting, knowing that he would have to go out a little bit of the classroom. And that was our push through elementary school, which was pretty successful. We had our challenges, but I can't say that our challenges that burnt some bridges, but also ended up building some bridges. And I think that we're very proud that what we have done is made it easier for the children with disabilities that has followed behind us. Brody himself is very social. His strengths definitely is a social person. So he's guided us into his, I would say, what he wanted to do. He wanted to play sports. So when he got into middle school, he wasn't quite quick enough to be on the team, but he became a team manager. He had a great advocate of a high school coach who did a basketball camp. And so he started in that camp when he was young, and that particular coach stayed with him until high school and probably was one of his biggest advocates. He got to high school, he wanted to play football. We kind of laughed in our heads, you're not going to last. He proved us wrong. And so I think with Brody, his strength is he loves people, and because of that, he's been a part of teams like a basketball team, a soccer team, a football team, and those. And as I know, as teachers, myself as a teacher, and now my husband, we started from the beginning educating that group of peers from first grade, giving talks.
Kelly,
And-
were you a teacher when he was born?
Yes, I was,
Okay.
which was a challenge at some times, but we just talked about that yesterday at a conference. How we saw double-edged swords sometimes, and the emotional. I was a parent when I was at my IEP meetings, and not a teacher, because you were very emotionally attached. And then through his high school, I think he became involved in the football team, which became. He had the same group of peers all through elementary that when we talked to, and we developed a network ourselves with parents. So this network was really strong all the way through high school, and really is still in college because he still sees some of them. So he became a huge part of that Scott community, which was his high school, and had some really great moments of playing football, a play, and then got to play in the basketball game. I don't know if you want to take over and.
Well,
talk a
it was
little
just,
bit
I
about
think,
this.
we were advocates. We bought into the program, and just became engaged in, educating people about, how, individuals are same but also different. And we kind of used that theme for a long time. And, our educational journey is, in a sense, has been successful in developing, relationships and educating. And we've had parents that come in from behind us that, have appreciated, some of the things that we have done, that help them as they're transitioning with their child. With
You're
the
not
same
going to get
disability.
away with advocacy in a generic sense. I mean, you know what's coming next. I've mentioned in our personal conversations, you've told me about your being involved with the Buddy Walk, and so at least share that you were involved with the founding.
Yeah, it was one of those things where we were on the Kentucky side of the river, and at the time the board was looking to make sure that they had a good representation from the entire tri-state. So it was just something I volunteered, and one of the things the Buddy Walk was something that came up, and it was something that I believed in and felt that could be successful, and it was a great journey in a sense that the vision was $100,000 for me. So the first meeting I came into, I threw $100,000 candy bars on the table, and so that kind of like, Dennis, that's nice, and we'll be happy with 20,000. So, but it was something that was. I just inside of me that having been associated with the organization and the families that we've networked with, that there was a powerful connection that was there, and we were able to tap into it. And halfway through the journey, we had a sponsor that came in and said, "We'll match it for every dollar that you raised." And so at the end of the day, they wrote me a check for $98,000.
Oh my God.
We made nearly 200,000.
Our next guest is
I'm
very interested in recruiting
It was
you.
exciting, and again, it was just and in the next year, of course, I didn't get the sponsor, didn't come back, but we did actually, raise 200,000 in just the community itself, and it's just a testimonial of just the support that is there from family and extended families.
I've been on hand when the Buddy Walk takes place, and there's a great spirit there.
And it's and this year they were at $450,000. So and it's just a testament to, I'm gonna be selfish, but it's the Midwest. We've got we got some good values and good families in this area, and it's evident in many other programs that go on. That need support. So it was a great journey. So, and it's it's good to see us still going.
Good. And that's a great tie-in with our other family being represented
Yes.
today. Dorothy Best is going to tell us a little bit about her journey And I'll let you mention your children's names.
Okay. My husband, George, and myself, 11 years ago, were granted temporary custody of our great niece and nephew, Alexis, who was 3 months old at the time, and Dakota, who was 2. Their parents had become involved and had been involved for a long time with drugs. And they both had to go to jail, and they were incarcerated for about 2 years. And so we were only going to keep the children for 6 weeks, 6 months. 11 years later, we still have them. And, you know, George and I thought, well, we raised 2 our biological children are now adults, and we thought, we raised 2 successful kids. They were in college. Surely we can do this part. What we didn't know is we also inherited mental health, mental illness. And through that, it has been a journey that I would not wish on anyone. It's a very hard journey. Mental illness is hard to diagnose. It has many different faces. When you think you have one diagnosis, you find out no, it's another diagnosis, which is worse than the first one was. Our son, and I do call him our son, even though technically he's not. We've had him for 11 years, and he's part of our family. He's our little boy, and
He's not biologically your son.
no, he's our nephew. Yeah. But we have fought, we have laughed, we have cried, we have endured. As for Dakota, he's a very violent little boy, and there were many days that he would throw me across the room. There are many days the police have been here. There have been many tears. And his sister, he has some of the characteristics of him, and she just hasn't quite come to being fully diagnosed yet. They have ADHD. Dakota has bipolar, apraxia, oppositional behavior. He inherited the malaise from his parents. His parents thought that he was a toy, a doll baby. Mm. And so they left him in his car seat for the first year. Mm. He got out of the car seat to have his diaper changed and get a bath. He went back in the car seat. And for all the times that the family tried to steer things in a different direction, it made it even worse. They were more defiant and more determined to do it their way. So, he has reactive attachment disorder. He can't bond with anyone. So what happened is that even though he grew physically, he didn't have any of the skills that you learn as a baby. So through many years of special education, sending him to behavioral school, sending him to the hospital, putting him in residential care at a couple of different places in northern Kentucky, that we could do that through the program that we had of Impact Plus. But Impact Plus has gone away, and the only way in Kentucky that I can get him the help he needs is to sign his custody over to the state.
Let me interrupt, Dorothy, because first of all, I need to say how much I personally appreciate your courage. Talking about mental health issues, nobody knows more painfully well than you do, because you have not only been a parent, you have worked your way up into NAMI, and
as an advocate,
and now the director, and you know painfully well the stigma of mental health. We live in a society, in a culture where nobody wants to talk about these things, and I say courage. You're very courageous, although it shouldn't be courage. It ought to be just ability to share
It should be the everyday conversation that we have about somebody has diabetes or, oh my gosh, they were diagnosed with cancer, what are they going to do?
because these are 1 in 4, and I think the numbers are a lot higher than that.
They are.
And we all suffer from situational anxiety and situational depression and so forth. So thank you for your willingness to share this on a
It's no
personal
problem.
note. And you know, the other thing I need to say is